This is going to be your guide to using the Void Gauntlet in New World Aeternum. So let's start off with the attributes where we want to max out intelligence because it gives us everything we want. Ability damage, elemental damage, and I say this for all of my intelligence guides, but you just need to hit 200. 10 mana on critical hit means you pretty much never run out of mana. As for the other stats, Constitution. I like hitting 200 if you can, but if you're in the end game, then all you need is the Void Drinker, and the more I do these guides, the more I realize, yeah, you actually don't need Constitution if you have the Blood Drinker, because you're always staying at max health, so just get this. It's not hard to get. If you can't afford it, you want leeching on your ring, you want void damage on your ring. Also, Sacred has some really interesting interactions you might not expect, and we're going to get into those. For the rest of the attributes, just dump everything into focus, like, 20 max mana and mana regen. Doesn't matter if you have 200 intelligence, but since the Void Gauntlet has dual scaling, you still get weapon damage with the focus points if your intelligence is maxed out. You only need to worry about getting 25 strength for the light attack damage. This build doesn't really rely on heavy attacks. It's more for the Abyss, which is a separate guide. And then we have 25% for the critical hit chance on dexterity. And then we're looking good here. As for the abilities, Void Blade OP, and you're going to see why later in the video. And then as you're leveling up your Void Gauntlet, you just want to put into Orb of Decay, into Oblivion, and you don't have to worry about completely maxing out the Void Blade, because Leeching Blade, we're not really using heavy attacks, but you can mix them up. Like if you need a little bit of clutch healing, and then you're like later into the points, you got nothing else you want to put, because you don't really need Detonating Orb the way we're playing this build. I also don't even think Slowing Orb is that needed, but there is like good synergy for having a lot of debuffs. And then Draining Orb, even though I talked about how we never run out of mana, this is really good if you don't have 200 intelligence, or just to really extra make sure you can spam abilities. You can run another intelligence weapon and spam abilities and just never have mana problems ever. That leads to crazy DPS. Check out my double gauntlet guide, check out my Firestaff Void Gauntlet build. I have a playlist with tons of content down below. Also, if you become a member, it's only $2, you get Discord access, and you also get to see videos and guides early. So, like, comment, subscribe, fun YouTube stuff. Back to the actual guide. And the reason why we're not running these other abilities initially is because they're single target focus. So Essence Rupture, it only hits the first enemy and then applies Essence Rupture to them. Same thing on the Tether. It doesn't pierce or anything. It tethers you to one target. These guides are mostly focused on PvE mob content because that's most of what there is in the game. You go into a landmark and then you have to like clear everything out for missions or objectives or something. Also, large pulls inside of expeditions, you just want to be very useful as a DPS, and technically you've got some healer stuff going on with the Void Gauntlet, maybe. So maybe you can cheat into certain groups as a healer, but there's also a really interesting thing you can do once you have a lot of levels in the Void Gauntlet, and that's just put points into the ability, even if you're not going to use them, because during an expedition you can just go, alright, time for the boss, switch off of Orb of Decay, put in Essence Rupture, that's going to help everyone. Put in Baleful Tether, that's going to make you super duper strong with the Void Blade. So it's Void Blade, Tether, and then Essence Rupture against bosses and solo content. Also, that means it's something to consider during soul trials. And the cool thing is, the rest of these perks are really bad once you have higher levels and like a lot of attributes and perks. Ooh, 15 stamina when hitting the target, and then you also have healing at the end of it. The only thing you want is a point into Tethered Refresh, but then we have 1, 2, 3, and we have 4 points available once we hit level 20, and there's nothing else we really want to put it into. 200 mana regeneration, don't need, and then healing for 80% once the tether ends also doesn't really matter, and then the rest of this is ranged attacks, which we're not doing with Void Blade. And this is kind of situational, like Leeching Blade, the last thing you get because of that self-heal on heavy attack, since we're not doing any of those things. But it shows there's some alternative ideas you can use with the Void Gauntlet that let you switch up on the fly during an expedition, and also means you're not slowing everyone down, where it's like, wait a second guys, let me pull up my other thing so I can respec into it and then change everything. Like, nah, you don't really need anything else, and it's just like, boom, boom, change out abilities, let's rock. For your weapon perks, you need Enchanted. Also, Refreshing Move is nice in the early game if you don't have like crazy amounts of cooldown effects coming in, but once you get into like an end-game Void Gauntlet, you don't need it, because you're going to see like cooldowns do not matter at all with this build. So Enchanted, Mortal Power, just getting empowered for a long time after you snowball one kill, That's huge. And then you can kind of have whatever in the other slot, but I like Blessed. And that's because of the interaction I was talking about earlier, where outgoing healing efficiency applies to you. And sometimes wording in games is weird or inconsistent, like allies might not include you, but only mean like other teammates and stuff. But with this, allies means you. So if we take damage and throw out the orb comes back and it heals us. And since it's an ability that's being like cast, it actually counts as outgoing healing. So we're healing more by having Blessed. Outgoing healing doesn't work with lifesteal, but it does work with your abilities that heal you. I haven't tested it individually by having the same exact weapon with and without Blessed, but Void Color Heal probably also works with it as well, which is also why it's good to have on the ring. It's just alternative ability lifesteal that's going to help you out if you don't have a Blood Drinker. It also means it helps allies, so you just dive in there with them and you give crazy amounts of healing in the melee, which is cool. As for the gem, Abyssal Rune Glass makes sense because we're getting void damage bonuses everywhere in our kit, so just more and more damage on top of that. And then Retaliate is the best gem, where if you're just in there as a melee taking hits, you just get 24% in power, and it's pretty awesome. So yeah, like we put out the Void Blade, cool, that's a Retaliate. That's another Retaliate. And then we can hit them, and we can see that bleed from our gem just kind of stack with the Disintegrate as well. And also, by hitting them multiple times, the gem is going to proc per auto attack. It doesn't stack, but it refreshes on auto attack, so it's kind of like faster than the 1 second ticks for 2 seconds on the damage. For gear, I only care about Enchanted Ward Void Harnessing because that's just busted to have 4% damage reduction from most hits you're taking inside of the game. And then Void Harnessing, since we're doing void damage, we get 2% here, 2% from our Rune Glass. That's just kind of cracked. And then you can have Wilderness Ward just so that way you get a little bit of magic resist somewhere, or you can have Onyx for the physical. And then this perk doesn't matter because I'm just trying to go for high level gear that has Enchanted Ward Void Harnessing, and then you want some effects elsewhere. So with this, like, oh yeah, I have to take a 679 gross with Dexterity. But then we can use that Dexterity to kind of get a little bit of like free crit in our points. So it only costs us like 5 attributes points total, which isn't terrible. And then Luck, that's only a good thing to have. Insatiable Gravity Well, Void Harnessing, Constitution Gloves. Never mind, we hit Biss and it feels great. I even committed to Void Harnessing on the Attuned Leather Pants. And then we also have the Breaching Shoes of the Scholar with, you know, Enchanted Ward Void Harnessing. That's all we care about. Health or Refreshing or some kind of other ability perk would be cool. If you have Blood Drinker, yeah, I know I'm a broken record, then you don't need the Voracious Blade, but just having that is also good. So like, you can get rid of one of your Void Harnessing if you can actually get the Void Blade perk on your armor, and then you're just going to be fine. Divine, healing effects, Alchemist Reprieve. The strength is here for the 10% heavy attacks on the Abyss, or like your one hit that you might do with a Void Gauntlet, and then refreshing, regenerating with some kind of warding gem. Good. As for my thoughts on the artifact, it's okay. My problem with it is that you actually don't really get too many benefits from it. Negative energy, well, that's ranged attacks for Disintegrate. We're doing Void Blade, so if you're doing like a caster Void Gauntlet, which just isn't that fun and also not that needed. It's not like you play this like a life staff or anything. You can also replace your scaling with Dexterity, so I guess if you're trying to be like ranged DPS, it's more PvP, and it is kind of cool. Like you can just have this as your offhand weapon, never use it, and just make your bow or musket stronger by popping them with a Disintegrate on both weapons. But if you're trying to run this for content or PvE, critical chance, sure, you can have that, but then life stealing, if you have Blood Drinker, if you have other leeching effects, it's not really that needed. Refreshing move, your abilities don't matter. It's not worth the dark matter and the weapon matrix just to put enchanted on this weapon, but it's good to just have like a strong, high gear score item that's not difficult to get, I guess. Now let's kill some shit and see how this goes. So we go into our Void Blade, we pop Oblivion, we slash, we're unkillable, we throw out the orb, crazy damage goes down, we just keep slashing. Who cares if we get staggered? Oblivion goes down again, never mind, they're all dead. I'm actually upset. Why is this so strong? I went all into Great Axe and Greatsword from like the very beginning of all 850 hours of my New World gameplay, and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, Void Blade melee is just stronger and worth putting into more. How does that make you feel? Makes me feel pretty bad. So yeah, we can just, you know, dodge out of that throughout the orb. Eventually that healing comes in, and then we just lifesteal everything up. This is like an uglier part of it as well. And as you can see, we're still fine. It works where we take out all that strong stuff. I'm just not even going to use a potion. We can hack everything down. So like we have more DPS. Our sustainability is all right. We get knocked down, which also brings in some weirdness where it's like, our damage is this crazy, and we find like some kind of other spec. Do we just go 300 Constitution and then we have Grit on all of our attacks? It's definitely a viable alternative build, especially because you're getting so much mana back when you use the orb. You don't need the 200. But also, once you get Stone Form, like if you're ever in trouble, then you're just not in trouble, and it's completely fine. So you can pop that, and then depending on how much damage you're doing and how much you're getting in there and destroying things, you can almost have perma Stone Form. Like, actually, if there's more enemies in this pool, it would be safer because we have perma Stone Form, and we're getting more life-stealing effects. And in practice, you don't need Leeching Blade, you don't need the slowing effect. So that means, like, yeah, just go Essence Rupture, and now I have that just kind of slotted in for whenever I might need it against bosses. Or if you clear out an area and you're having problem with, like, the named enemies, then you can swap up your build right there and win. And honestly, I think the sad reality is you actually do more DPS with 300 Constitution because you're not getting staggered like that. So you actually just have double damage uptime with a lot of damage still. And then you do your thing, you do that, Stone Form. A little, you know, you can actually play smart sometimes. Wow, imagine healing and using potions from time to time. And then you're just fine. So yeah, Orb heals us, hits things. We are shredding through Conscripted Warhounds, which shouldn't happen. And then done. GG, easy. You throw out all your abilities. We're slightly down on mana. No, wait, never mind. And we win. So let's see what it looks like to be truly immortal and still have disgusting amounts of damage. I really hope that my gods don't get Blood Drinker nerfed, even though it's been like this the entire time. And then I guess there's like a world where you can swap to a different weapon and then use those abilities and then go back into Void Blade, and it's cool. Man, Void was the play the entire time. Damn. Whatever. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.